Hi, you're here with Kevin and Brandon. Today I'm going to talk about how I overcame heroin addiction. Now, this is a very sensitive topic for me because for so many years I had struggled with it for 15 years actually. And it was a very wretched part of my life. It had taken me down to my knees many times, more times than I could imagine, and it left me with nothing so many times. And I would keep going back to it because I was just so enticed by it. But I did overcome it, and I feel like it is my moral obligation to discuss how I overcame such a horrible affliction that had hindered me in so many ways before. And with that, I'll get started. What caused my heroin addiction to begin? Well, as a kid, I was into grunge and a lot of early 90s music where the artists were heroin addicts. A lot of my musical heroes were addicts as well. And also, I watched films such as Pulp Fiction, Trainspotting, and Basketball Diaries, as well as Requiem for a Dream. And I was just enticed by the culture that surrounded heroin. I was even into the whole heroin chic trend from the 90s. And I didn't seem to register that a lot of these people died and that they did not go out in a good manner. And it just was something that I even glamorized at some points because I thought that was just how I was supposed to live because I was a musician and a creative, and I didn't quite grasp the reality of the situation until I was going through it. And when I was going through it, I didn't care about anything because when you're on heroin, you just don't care. The whole world could be coming to an end and you just would be okay with it. And that's how I was for a lot of years. I mean, so what began my heroin addiction? Well, I know seeing films and listening to music could have, but also I went through a lot of bad things as a child. I went through a lot of abuse, mental abuse, and there was a lot of unsavory things that had happened to me, and that can attribute to my heroin addiction as well as me being on the autism spectrum and being different, and a lot of people picked on me as a kid and I felt like an outsider, like I didn't fit in, sort of like a social pariah. I didn't have good self-worth, didn't have good confidence, and when I discovered drugs, especially heroin, my confidence just was boosted to unbelievable levels, and I felt good for the first time, and I was at peace. And the thing I sought the most was having peace of mind and just feeling okay. And that was one of the root causes of me becoming a heroin addict. But how did I overcome it? Well, for many years, I went through so much hell from heroin addiction. There were times I would overdose, and I went through 3 cardiac arrests from when I had OD'd before, and I still kept at it. And I didn't feel like I didn't have any purpose at all. I really didn't feel like I had any purpose. Felt like nothing was ever going to improve, and I was resigned to the fact that I was going to live the rest of my life as a heroin addict. I was just resigned to that. I didn't care. I just figured this is it. This is how my life is going to go. And but when I got clean at times, because I didn't really have any choice, and I got clean not by choice, but just to have a roof over my head or whatever, or to get people off my back. But in the instances I was clean, things did get better, and I did feel a little more confident about myself because I would be paying bills, doing all the responsible things, and that actually felt good because I was doing stuff on my own for the first time in a good state of mind. And I think that ties in with having purpose. Now, it wasn't enough to keep me clean, no doubt. And there were a lot of things that happened along the way before I got clean, and I even went through some bad things when I was in sobriety before. And I will say this, AA and all that, it helped, but it just really wasn't for me. So as time goes on, I keep relapsing and such. And then in recent years, when I stopped and went on a Suboxone maintenance plan, I was able to find a sense of purpose by doing music and writing books. And as you can see on my channel, I have a lot of music published, and I do dark ambient and techno, and I have books on Amazon Kindle. I have 5 novels actually published on Kindle if you want to check that out. But nonetheless, what helped me the most with overcoming heroin addiction was having a sense of purpose. Because before, I had no sense of purpose. I felt worthless, had no self-worth whatsoever. But once got that back, and once I began to have goals that I've set and goals that I'm still striving for, I realized that, this is what life is about. And I don't know exactly what the premises of living so happens to be, but I know that part of living is doing what your heart tells you, having passion within yourself, and doing the things that you love to do and being purposeful with it. And that is what has gotten me to stay away from drugs and, not fall back into the vicious cycle that I had been so accustomed to for so many years. It's kind of like in Portugal when people were so strung out, like a lot of people were strung out in Portugal, and the government decided, hey, we'll just give addicts jobs and such and give them a new life. Guess what? It worked very effectively. Even though they decriminalized drugs, it still worked because they gave these addicts a sense of purpose by having a good job that would pay them well, and to give them some responsibilities, and most of all, to help them with their pride. And I think that is very crucial for recovering from addiction in general, because if you don't have a sense of purpose and you don't have any passion for anything, you're more likely to slip back into your old ways. And what did it for me really was having purpose and sense of purpose, at least, and good self-worth definitely was a big part of it, and having goals to strive for. And I'm still striving for those goals, and I'll tell you this, I haven't really even thought about going back at all. And that is really the beauty of it, because before, even when I was clean, I would think about heroin at least 5 to 10 times a day. I hardly think about it anymore. And I think one of the things that you can attribute that to is that I have goals that I've set, and there is no place for drug abuse in those goals. There's no place for it, and I don't even think about it anymore. And I think that having dreams, having purpose, and having goals is what's going to help you recover from such a affliction that has hindered you and had you fettered to such a malicious lifestyle that people will eventually perish from at some point if they don't stop. And I am very grateful to have found purpose and to have improved my self-worth drastically, actually. And with that, that's all I got to say, because that was really the thing that saved me in the end, or was one of the things. Yeah, coping methods and therapy helped, but what sealed the deal was me having a sense of purpose and a good self-worth. And with that, I'll leave it with this. If you are still struggling, don't give up. There is always hope. And if you just need the help, seek someone who's sober. And also try to find a passion within yourself. What are you passionate about? And go for that, because that is one of the things that makes life great, is having passion for something and making something out of it. And you're here with Kevin and Brandon on Times with Kevin and Brandon. I enjoyed doing this podcast today, and if there's going to be more in the future, I hope you got something out of it. And in any case, have a good night, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be, and I'll see you next time.